rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
stay the at home. The Rona is spreading. This is no joke. It's no time to work or roam. The way you can fight it is simple, my friends. Just stay the at home. Now, technically, I'm not a doctor, but mother listen when I read a poem. So here I am, Sam Jackson, imploring you, keep your ass at home. If you want things to get back to normal, don't panic. Just use your dome. Wash your hands, stop touching your face, and stay the at home. Motherfucker, it's no time to gamble. Look around, you're not at a casino. Just stay the home as if your name was Trenton Quarantino. Sure, you can still see your friends. Use the mother app on your phone. But unless you just ran out of groceries, please stay the at home. Thank you for doing your part to flatten the curve, because that is steep. And now that you're home, please feel free to go the to sleep. The end.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Today is Thursday. Welcome to another episode of the Eric Dawson Radio Show. I've got Diana Marie Clements on the line, and I've got hailing from South Jersey, Democratic senatorial candidate, New Jersey senatorial candidate.
Yep, federal.
No, New Jersey, right? Not state.
Yeah, representing the state of New Jersey.
Yeah, representing, right? But they say New Jersey senator or Texas senator or right. I think I got it right. But anyway, federal. Welcome to the show, guys. And listen, stay tuned. I haven't gotten a phone call from him yet, and we were trying to figure out how to properly pronounce his name. He'll help us out with it when he calls, because I don't want to butcher it. But he is a intellectual properties attorney. He called and said he wanted to come on the show to talk about the value of protecting your intellectual property, identifying what intellectual property is first, right? So the vocabulary, and then understanding the value of protecting it. So if and when he calls in, we'll interrupt whatever else we're talking about, and we'll jump into that for a few minutes. How you guys doing?
Good morning.
Good morning, Eric. I'm doing wonderful. It's nice outside today.
Wonderful.
I just got finished walking the dog. Or rather, the dog just got finished walking me.
I was going to say, Diane, that dog walks you.
The neighbor came out on the block and was like, "Oh my God, he's bigger."
Yeah, that dog says, "Go this way."
Pretty much.
Oh my goodness. You know what? But is your dog well trained?
As far as what?
Okay.
Let's put it this way. I was taking out the boxes yesterday, and I was holding him in one hand, and somebody came down the street. And he kind of lunged at him. So yeah, he's well trained and protected me.
Okay. So there's a Rottweiler in my stepmother's neighborhood down over on Wilbur Avenue, right in Newark, and the Rottweiler continuously runs away from his home. Now, the first time he did it, he landed on my brother's or my stepmother's lawn. And my brother saw in the evening this massive Rottweiler, and so my brother retreated into the house. But after he got in the house and was safely behind the screen door, he realized that the Rottweiler hadn't chased him. So then he wondered, okay, is he friendly? And then the Rottweiler went over to the garbage can and started trying to rummage through the garbage. So my brother realized he was hungry, so went and got something and cautiously opened the screen door and put it outside. The dog came up and didn't bark or didn't show any signs of aggression at all and ate the food that my brother put out there. So my brother developed the courage to open the door and put his hand out there. Right? I guess he's wondering if he was going to offer him dessert, but he put his hand out there and the dog licked his hand. And I'm gonna fast forward through this. So anyway, the dog is a repeat runaway from his home, and comes to my stepmother's home.
Because he's responsible for containing the dog.
Wait a minute. So no. But yeah. Well, we could talk about the responsibility that other owner has, or how irresponsible he is. But what I find fascinating is this dog continues to come back to my stepmother's home. My brother's girlfriend has named, because they didn't know the name of the dog, so instead of John Doe, they named it John Dog. Right?
Oh, God.
It gets better. So John Dog is well trained. And because my brother, the first time John Dog ran away, they ultimately found the owner. So the owner came by and had a long conversation. The owner spent over $10,000 in training for John Dog. And John Dog is spoken to in terms of the commands in German. And he is an incredible dog. I mean, an amazing dog. So John Dog, when he does vacation at my stepmother's house now, they give him the run of the house. So he's not outside now. He's in the house. And they started off, Diane, by limiting to one room, and then they opened it up to another room. Now John Dog comes upstairs, and he sits outside, and he lays outside my stepmother's bedroom at night, protecting her. And then a couple days later, the owner will come by and retrieve John Dog, and John Dog will go back home. It is the most bizarre relationship that this dog now has with two families.
Oh, that's cute, though.
Yeah.
That's really cute. Luckily, it worked out well, because usually, and when I say my dog is not, he's trained, so he's trained to protect, but so he does no commands, sit, all of that kind of stuff. But dogs training depends on the owner's intentions. So once my dog is familiar with you and you're in the house, he's good. He'll come play with you, all of that. But if he's unfamiliar or if he sees you as a threat, he'll have a problem. The mailman comes, he loves the mailman. The mailman's known him since we first got him. So he'll play with the mailman, all of that. But, so it just depends on the temperament of what the owner wants the dog to be. And it is very expensive to train dogs, period, because it's really not an easy feat to train.
But if you have a well-trained dog like that, what a pleasure and joy. I had a dog, his name was Whizzer. I'll get into why we named him Whizzer on another episode. But he's a golden retriever, and the greatest part about him was that I trained him from a very, very young age to be off leash. So I could walk with him and we'd be off leash. And, the really good part about it is when I was living up in Berkeley Heights, I had like 2 acres in my backyard. And most of it was wooded. And I would just let him go, and he would chase the deer, because golden retrievers need to run. Right, they need to get a lot of exercise, and so he would just go off, and then I'd whistle, he'd come back, and so it's pleasurable if you can do that. But listen, I think we have a phone call, and I want to see who's on the line. Hello, caller.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How y'all doing?
Fast Khan Sawab, how are you, brother?
I'm cool. I'm chilling. I just called in this morning because it's been on my mind all night, and this morning I'm seeing more information, and we haven't really talked about it much on the show. But what is everybody understanding or viewing on this situation down in Georgia? The Ahmaud Arbery, I believe is how you pronounce your last name, situation.
Yeah.
I mean, as it's unfolding, what I'm seeing, he's being characterized as a jogger, right? And because of the video that we're seeing. But now I'm understanding he's not jogging in the video. He's fleeing in the video. And I don't mean like fleeing from a crime. He's fleeing from the attack. The video, the guy in the video is also part of the lynching party, you might as well say.
Right.
He's running from him.
Yeah. So here's
where to go.
Here's what I think. And I heard something very, very disturbing today, the language that's being used around it. So, you had one of the individuals who was responsible for murdering him say that they believed that he was a suspect.
Burglarizing.
I'm sorry?
Potential burglarizing.
No. Right.
Yeah.
That. So they made a determination that he did that, and then they acted. So here's my issue. I don't have a problem if you suspect somebody of having done something. Okay. The question is, what is the next thing you feel you have the right to do? And so now they did call the police, right? There is a 911 call. And they were asked what the person was doing and some other things. I don't remember.
The call not from the abusers. The call was from another woman stating that she thought he was breaking in an abandoned home, and the home was empty, under construction. The call was from a woman. It wasn't from the guys.
I didn't say who the call came from. I said that I don't think I did say who the call came from.
No. I'm just specifying.
Right.
Go ahead.
But the question now is, so what do you do next? And so you make a phone call, you call the police, your life's not in danger, right? There was no danger to either of those individuals. So let's assume he was a burglar. Let's assume he stole $1 million worth of jewelry and 15,000 flat screen televisions. Let's say he did all of that. Nobody's life. But wait a minute. Let me finish nobody's life was in danger. So for them to do anything other than call law enforcement based on...
No, that's why I was trying to say something, Eric. According to Georgia law, if you see a crime, or if a crime is being taken, or if you are, immediate knowledge that a crime has happened, you have the right as a citizen. You are essentially deputized in I can't think of the word.
Vigilante.
Detaining. Right? You are deputized with the right in Georgia to detain anyone you have observed or believed to be part of a crime.
I got it. And now, wait a minute. Because I haven't, and I wish we had like a long commercial break that I could go and read up on that law. So Vincent, if you could try to find that or Diane and pull it up, and because or Farrakhan, and then read the law, because I want to be clear on what it is that we're saying, right? I don't want to paraphrase. I want to be clear on what we say. I'm not familiar with that law, so I can't speak on it, right? But I want to make sure, because if you're telling me,
I'm just going by what their lawyer said. Well, with the lawyer of the family.
No. But what I'm saying is,
find the fact that. Go ahead.
What I'm saying
according
is,
to what the lawyer for the family said, they are going to stand by. The prosecution hasn't, gone forward because they basically were saying that there's a law in Georgia that
right. But I don't want. That's what I'm saying. When you use words like basically,
but even past the law, what you have to understand, the person that attacked him was a former investigator from the prosecutor's office, retired. Right. So there is, and if you ever, I don't know if you've ever been to Glenn County, where I go every year where my family is, and Brunswick is very, very racist. Always has been. But there is a separation of the whites and blacks, and you can clearly see it in that town. Of blacks on one side of the railroad tracks and whites living on the other side. So there has been a division there for years.
But I want to stay on the one thing, and I understand all of that, right? Let's take this. Caller, please hold on 1 second. I want to stay on what Farrakhan is saying. I understand that there may be racial tensions there, Diane, and understand the division of sides of tracks and all that kind of stuff. But if we're having a conversation around a law, I want to clarify that piece first. You know, and so but and so what I'm gonna do is reserve my comment until I am clear on the law. Right? Then I can go further. Hello?
Hello? Okay, no, just listening to Eric, right? You know, I just put it out there. I just wanted to get a vibe for what everybody else is feeling and maybe even research themselves. Because like I said, I'm looking at this and I was always questioning, why is this guy videoing him from behind? I didn't understand that he was with those people. I was assuming that. I was almost feeling like they were hunting him kind of thing. So when I saw the TMZ interview with the family's lawyer, and he explained that the guy that videoed it was actually with. So when we see him, what looks like he's jogging, he's running from the guy with the video camera. They have him trapped. That's why he was running. If you notice, the father and the son are in front of him, right? He's jogging towards him, so you would assume. But what is actually happening is they've been chasing him for a while before we see the video. And he's running from the guy with the camera. In that part, because he can't go that direction. They've obviously blocked him off from that direction. Now they're blocking him off from in front. So he's just trying. He essentially had no escape from them. They had him surrounded.
The sources say that there's two issues that we're dealing with. At that particular area that he was jogging in.
I just got a text message, and so I would ask, again, I just want clarification on this. Because what just came, in this case, this is from a former law enforcement officer. He just texted me, he said, he's listening to the show. He said he's talking, meaning you, Farrakhan, that you're talking about a citizen's arrest.
Right.
Okay, so I just want to, but I still want clarity, because there are a couple things now that go through my mind. One is, if what you're saying is correct, meaning that if I'm driving my car and I'm carrying, right, and I just suspect, right, that you, so I heard that a store got robbed, right, and it was a black guy, and I'm driving down the street, and I don't have a full description, but I just know that it's a black guy. And then I see you, and I got a gun, that I now have a right to detain you, right? And
well, of course,
please let me finish.
Right, you have to have immediate knowledge, meaning you have to have seen him doing it. Like, you have to see some part of the crime in order for you to approach him about it.
Oh, okay.
That's what they mean by immediate knowledge.
Okay.
That's the actual law in vigilantism or citizen arrest. You have to be a witness to it, and you are stopping you're stopping him from getting away. Now, what they did was, in that video, is that they were cruising a neighborhood. They saw the black man running, and the neighborhood has been experiencing a string of robberies. They profiled him, saying that a black man running in this neighborhood, he must be the man who's been robbing everybody.
Right.
But in all reality, he had nothing. They had no knowledge of him robbing anything. They started chasing him and just basically did a modern-day lynching, except for they shot him. Now, they approached him. He got tired of running. They approached him to attack him. He took one of them down, and they shot him, saying that they were fearing for their life, right, invoking the Georgia version of stand your ground.
Right. So that's why I'm trying to get the clarification on the law, right? Because so now you have an individual who's done nothing. He gets chased down by two people. You say he doesn't really have a right to defend himself, right, against these two people, because he has no idea why these two people are chasing him. He now sees them with long guns. He still doesn't have a right to defend himself or run.
But in that action, with him seeing a gun and being chased down, now he now has the right to invoke the law of nature, self-preservation.
Right. And but then it goes further, right? And then, they talked about the ties that that exist within law enforcement that has kept this thing from moving forward. That the original account doesn't match now what we see on this video.
And they would have got away with it.
Yeah.
Until these people started, believing the press, because everybody believed that they stopped a burglar, captured and killed him, and they were being patted on the back, getting drinks because they were heroes. And then somebody realized, wait a minute, he doesn't have anything.
Yeah. Yeah. We have another caller.
Does anybody know if the young man is a Muslim? And the only reason I'm asking,
I don't know,
is because there
know.
is a picture, right, of the governor of Georgia and the father of the shooter, right, or the shooter, right, one of the two guys, right, and he's wearing a shirt at some event for the governor in which says, Allah is not God and Muhammad is not something. You can't see what he says after what Muhammad isn't. But I see that the young brother's name is Ahmoud something. So I'm just curious.
I don't know.
If he was Ahmoud Auburn. Because now I start wondering whether or not he knew who the man was.
Yeah.
And if he was a Muslim and he's anti-Muslim, did they really lynch and stalk and hunt this man?
Yeah. I don't know.
Why?
You asked if I knew. I don't know. We got another caller. Caller, go.
Hey, first thing I want to say is be careful with pictures and information you see on the internet, because everything is doctored and we're being manipulated in ways you never imagined when it comes to these social media platforms. Like you said, there's a lot of controversy around this case. The man was jogging. He jogged every day according to what his mother said. And they had probably seen him before, who knows. But one thing I do know, vigilantism, and if they saw him committing a crime, has nothing to do with them using deadly force. They were geared up for World War III and chasing and hunting the man. They literally hunted the man down using vehicles and it's a dangerous mindset out here, and it's almost a reverse of the Central Park 5 situation where the white woman was jogging and how they went through the community until they got their desired prey, and now this black man is jogging, and they hunt him down until he was preyed upon. And according to what I'm hearing, but this goes back a couple of months now. If the family wouldn't have stayed on this, and the community wouldn't have stayed on this, we would never know what was going on down there.
Exactly.
So it's more to the story that we're hearing, because the community actually
not only the community, but the actual sheriffs and the police department were suppressing the information and about to let these guys continue on with the rules of being heroes. It was not going to go to the grand jury until they kept pressuring them. They got the videotape, the NAACP and the ACLU kept pressuring them. They got the videotape that hit TMZ showing this man having nothing and running for his life.
Right. And which leads me to believe that there's probably more cases like this out there. Who knows? But we're in some dangerous times. These people are, what's going on between people's ears nowadays is getting to be extremely dangerous. And people have to be aware of their surroundings. And because, they call themselves being, here we go again with the community watch, detaining people, and I'm going to hold them.
But Mike,
I'm gonna
you say that we're in, we're in dangerous times now. We've always been in dangerous times.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. It's exacerbated now. Excuse me.
Which is part of my challenge, right? And one of the things that I try to impress upon people here. that there have been moments in my lifetime at 57 years old where I've been led to believe that there has been a quail in racial tension and all these kinds of things, and that we're in somehow in some post-racial America, right? And that we should move on and forgive and forget and all these things, and that to bring these things up, much like the thing I posted a few days ago, and a very good friend of mine came into the thread and said, Eric, why are you posting this racist stuff? See, so the idea is you want me to forget it, move on, right? Don't talk about it because, it causes you and others to confront the true ugly nature of what white privilege is founded on, which is brutality, right? And that is the truth. So all white privilege is grounded and founded on brutality. And so the desire to maintain the status quo, that means that there has to be this brutality. And what I'm saying is, no, I'm done. I'm tired of it. It needs to be brought to the forefront, and not something that's just happening, but something that's always happened. And here's the other thing, Mike. We got cameras now. But before when we didn't have cameras, dude. I mean, come on. What are we talking about?
Well, that was the whole thing. The Honda always gets to tell the story until now we have the cameras, and what history is telling us that, if we ignore what history is telling us, by me saying, yeah, we live in, these times are tough. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Eric, because people are detached from their history, and this thing, we're so far removed from what happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But the other half of what you were saying, what you both were saying, is that white privilege is established by brutality, but it is backed up by injustice. The police were the actual attack dogs of these people who did this brutality. They were considered good old boys. Thanks for helping me out. When they beat up a black man who moved into a white neighborhood, or when they burnt down, a black family's house because they were too close to, some other white people's house, or when they lynched a black man for voting. It was all in their brutality, that mob mentality. Yet it was always substantiated by unequal justice. None of these guys got prosecuted for those acts and actions. That's what enforced them to continue to do it. We sit up here and day by day we swallow injustices happening to black people because it's just so ingrained in our nature that nothing can be done.
So that's how I feel, Farrakhan, about what's going on. We'll look to see it unfold. But look, here's something that I'm going to pay close attention to, though. The pandering. The pandering from the Joe Biden.
Propaganda is more like it.
Right.
Propaganda, because
no, some of it is propaganda.
On Facebook, you have to check people because, when people attach themselves that they never attached themselves to before.
Right.
What is it to be gained politically?
Well, see, because here's the thing, right? Yes, I want the case itself to be dealt with, but I want the underlying condition to be resolved, right? But they're never focused on the underlying condition, and that's why we keep having these cases. So cut out the cancer, but none of them have the courage to do that. So what they do is it crops up, and then you get them, they run out, they get the camera time, they talk about how they're on the side of the black community, and woe is me, and all this. And I'm saying, no. You much like this pandemic, where they're looking at the black community and the suffrage of the black community based on our underlying conditions that they knew existed all of these decades and did nothing about. But now they're running out saying, oh, we want to fix it. Right? But the things that are required to resolve the condition, the underlying condition, they lack the political courage to do it. And so that's what I'll be paying attention to. Yeah, deal with the case, but then deal with the true underlying condition, because that's still there. And until you deal with that, there's going to be another shooting. There's going to be another public lynching. There's going to be another.
Correct.
And they all know it.
Correct, because they keep putting a Band-Aid on an open laceration. They sit up there, they give these cops a little slap on the hand when he kills a black man because he says he feared for his life. But the underlying condition is that we don't have enough political power to sit up here and change these laws that allow them to get away with it.
So that's what I'll be paying attention to. Right? I'll be paying attention to that other piece. Not the smoke and mirrors, the distraction of, appealing to the immediate emotional charge that the black community has. But what after that? See, so I'd like to now go and look and say, well, remember what happened in Ferguson?
Right.
How things doing in Ferguson now? Or is it just festering and waiting for another occurrence?
No,
right?
They didn't have the political power. They had elections right after that, and people didn't go out and vote numbers and vote.
There we go. That's what I'm saying. So Ferguson is ripe for another Mike Brown, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? When we look at New York, there was just recently another incident of police attacking a black person, right? So in New York, we say, well, we had who was the gentleman with the cigarettes with the Lucy's that was choked to death?
Oh yeah,
right. So that, I don't think that we've really dealt with the culture there. So that's ripe until we actually get in there and root it out. But the work that's required in rooting it out requires upsetting the apple cart of a lot of special interest groups, and folks lack the political will and courage to do it.
It's not that. It's that we have set ourselves up for them to not pay attention to our agenda. How did we set ourselves up? Okay, let's look at this. We do not support black candidates or candidates that want to move the black agenda. We do not support those candidates who want to level the playing field of racial equality, food,
but that's exactly what I just said.
We don't come to their campaign meetings. We don't go to any board meetings. We don't give $20 to their campaign contributions, and yet we sit there and wonder why does this stuff continue to happen to us.
But that's what I just said. So because we're not a valued special interest group, the special interest that they're kowtowing to, right? They lack the political courage to upset that apple cart because they don't have the belief that we're going to come out and be supportive of them. So those people over there are writing checks. Those people over there are voting. And so they don't want to piss those people off. So they keep the status quo. And that means that we got to continue to run from white folks with long guns.
That means we have to continue to tell our sons the same conversations that our grandfathers told our fathers about how to act when a police officer pulls you over. That means we have to sit up here and pay 2.5 times what a white person pays for in a house in the same neighborhood.
So listen, guys. Yeah. And so Farrakhan.
I'm listening. Have a good
All right, I'm gonna get off my soapbox and build better, which basically means that you're now looking at the face of another form of regentrification.
I don't think anything will change. I think they will still build high rises, and it is an accomplishment for developers to build the greatest building they can. Right? This is like the virtual mission of most very large developers, like to build a building higher, to build it, to put one more floor to it. So I don't think that COVID-19 or any type of pandemics are going to affect corporate thinking if there's profits to be made. Right? That's what you're talking about when you're talking about a developer. You're talking about profits to be made. If the profit says go to 110 stories, they're going 110 stories.
Well, there are some who will do that, and then there's some and I agree with that. But there's also the mindset that says, you know what, I don't want to be in that crowded area anymore, so I don't mind driving an hour or hour and a half to work. So I like to be spread out and have some grass rather than living on top of one another.
Oh, wait a minute. Hey, guys, listen. I didn't know. So he texted me and said he's on the call. Alonzi, you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, yeah. So I got the call. We didn't give him the protocol. When I say call or go, you have to jump in. So,
okay. I think he was more waiting for an introduction.
So I'm gonna let Farrakhan finish his thought, and then we're gonna introduce Alonzi, and then we're gonna like I said, we're gonna break into a discussion about intellectual property. Farrakhan? Oh, okay. I guess Farrakhan hung up. So Alonzi, do me a favor. Would you pronounce your last name for me, please?
Yes, the last name is Etufu.
Etufu.
E-T-U-F-U-G-H, yes.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome Alonzi Etufu to the show. He is an intellectual properties attorney. And I got a phone call from him last week, and we had an interesting conversation, very enlightening one, and he agreed to come on and to share information with us. And I thought that it'd be timely, given how things are going to be shifting now in the age of COVID-19. A lot of businesses going out of business. People may be seeking to become entrepreneurs, right? And, developing products or services, and how to do that. I've talked to you guys from a marketing standpoint about how to build businesses and how to strategize and such. But then there's this other piece of it, which is that this baby, as some people call it, is actually your intellectual property, and what are you doing to protect it? So welcome to the show, Alonzi.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on.
So why don't you go deeper and talk about your firm, what you do, and explain to people, and maybe we start there, what intellectual property is.
Thank you. Well, intellectual property is a class of property rights that protect the product of human imagination. So we have four forms of intellectual property: patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. And these are all products of human imagination. Because they are property, they're similar to any other form of property, such as real property, like a building, a car. The only difference between intellectual property rights and regular property rights is just that, intellectual property you can't touch. You can't touch
it's not concrete.
It's not concrete, right? Mm-hmm. But it's there, right? So whatever you can do to other property, other forms of property, whether you could sell your car, you could sell your intellectual property, you could license it, you could place a lien on it, you could transfer it in the will, and so on and so forth. So that's basically what intellectual property is. Now, in terms of my background, I studied electrical engineering in undergrad. I graduated, worked for a while in the construction management industry, designing building systems designs and electrical systems, and eventually left all of that and went to law school because I wanted to be a patent lawyer. And after I graduated, I worked for a firm that was in existence back in 2001 called Morgan & Finnegan. They specialize in intellectual property law. I was with them for 5 years, and then I left them and I started my practice. So my practice has focused primarily on intellectual property law. There's patents, trademarks, copyrights, and to some extent some trade secrets matters. And basically we help clients identify the intellectual property, protect the intellectual property, enforce against infringers, and also help them with the monetization process, whether it's a licensing deal or a sale.
So when you talk about, for instance, baking, and I'm going to use that as an example, intellectual property. And the person that comes to mind is Famous Amos, right? So it's chocolate chip cookie, right? Guy made chocolate chip cookies and baked them, had an asset, didn't protect his asset, and lost it.
You said he protected it and lost it? I lost you there.
Can you hear me?
Barely. I lost you there. You said I think you said you protected it and he lost it.
Your line is breaking up.
Okay.
Can
you hear me now better?
I got you. Are you familiar with Famous Amos?
Yes. I remember Famous Amos, the man who had a wonderful chocolate chip cookie recipe. Actually, there's also a name. The famous name, Amos name, is still being used in commerce.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now, in Famous Amos's case, yes, the recipe that he used for his. So let me just take it from the top.
Mm-hmm.
There are a number of intellectual property matter issues here. One is the recipe, right? The underlying recipe for the chocolate chip cookie, right? Now, because recipes are not basically they're mixtures that are not at the atomic level, so you cannot protect them as a patent. However, you can protect them as a trade secret in the sense that you can keep it secret. Trade secrets are you don't have to file an application for them; you just have to keep them secret. So that's one. The recipe is a trade secret. Second thing is the process of making the cookies. Now, a process it could be a form of a patentable subject matter that you could patent if it's novel. In other words, if it's new, no one else has done that before. So you think about a manufacturing plant that makes these cookies, the process of making it, either mixing the dough, how they mix the dough, how they include other ingredients, and how they move the dough to the oven, and so on and so forth. That whole process, if it's new, it's useful, and it's not obvious to any other person, then it could be patentable. Then you have the name, the tagline, the name Famous Amos, which basically is a way of identifying the source of the cookies. Now, who is providing these cookies?
Branding.
That's another. Well, branding is the marketing plus the underlying trademark, right? The trademark forms the foundation for the branding. The branding is the way you portray yourself in the world, and it's part of your marketing. It's the marketing plus trademarks together, but the trademark is the bedrock of it. So once you protect the trademark, or once you start using the trademark, then you can work off the trademark to tell the world, hey, listen, if you see this, know it's me, know it's good, please buy it.
Can I interrupt? Can I stop for 1 second? So having the trademark begins the building of your asset. The marketing that you do. So if I were to equate it to kind of like buying a 1-bedroom house, right? And so now you've got that. You got that asset. Now you want to add on to it. So you decide to side it. Then you decide to expand, add another bedroom, update the bathroom, improve on the kitchen. So that's all the marketing, right? And the advertising to build that brand or build that asset to give it more value.
Well, to make it more attractive, right? So make it more attractive and also make it more visible for people to see.
Right. It has to be a household name to be considered a brand.
Right. And people normally interchangeably use brand versus with trademark. But again, in a sense, a brand can be a trademark because basically a trademark is a source identifier. But at the very root of what a brand is trademark, which is a source identifier, plus the marketing, which is the effort that you make to make it visible and make it to be marketable and for people to see the value in it.
Case in point, when you drive down the highway, you see a sign with a red roof on it. Red roof being the trademark.
Exactly. The red roof is a source identifier telling you that the red roof is, what is the hotel red roof, or it, distinguishes it from like Holiday Inn or something like that.
Right.
So if you're looking
what I'm
for red
trying to
roof
do not confuse, because there is a distinct difference between branding and branding something and having a trademark. So you can brand something, meaning that people recognize it for being what it is. But the idea of having intellectual property that is protected, that in and of itself, just because people identify it, doesn't mean that you can protect it.
That is partially correct. Yes, I mean, you can. So let's take a trademark, for instance. There are 4 ways in which you could obtain a trademark. 3 of them which are applicable to the United States. The first way is common law trademark, which is basically you're using your what is a logo, a slogan, or tagline, or name as a source identifier. Okay, so let's think about FedEx, for instance, right? So let's use the FedEx name as a trademark as an example here. So if FedEx was just using it in commerce, they didn't bother to register it, but they used it effectively as a source identifier, then they accrue what we call common law trademark rights. And those rights are very geographic in nature. If you're based in Newark and you only do your business in Newark, then you accrue rights in Newark. But it means that if I go to New York and I start using the same trademark, you have no cause of action against me because you're limited by the geographic nature of your common law right. The second level is a state registration, whereby you go to your state and you file an application for a trademark application for registration for your state. Whether it's New York or New Jersey, each state has its own trademark regime whereby they provide protection within the state. Once again, you cross the borderline. If you're not in that area, someone can use the mark. The third level is a federal level whereby you file a general nationwide application with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and you obtain nationwide protection, which includes the 50 states and territories, and you get nationwide protection that way. That way you don't have to go to each individual state to file an application. So those are the 3 ways you could obtain a trademark in the United States. Now, if you just never bothered to file an application, whether with the state or the federal government, and you just localize your operations, yes, you can accrue rights in your general locale. And with your marketing, that's where the branding comes into play. People now come to recognize that mark as a symbol of one, good service, good products, and also a place where it's affordable if that's your brand, or if it's if it's a high end, then that's also your brand. So all these things are built on top of the trademark itself.
So let me ask you a question, because you talk about common law. So you have a lot of entrepreneurs in the community, and they've got friends who are graphic artists, so they design logos. I've driven down the street and I've seen logos that look very similar to one another, right? I've seen names of establishments, be they food establishments or salons or other kinds of businesses, and they have very, very similar names. And nobody's really pushing and pulling because they're not making a ton of money, right? So nobody is talking about being infringed upon. Maybe they don't really understand the laws and everything. But there are some there's some issues there, are there not? If one of those companies decided that they wanted to take some legal action against another one.
Yes, I mean, obviously, if you are what we call the senior user, in other words, you're the first one to adopt a trademark, for instance, you're the senior user. And if you see the guy down the street adopting a similar mark, and, if you're in the same industry, that could be a problem where your customers or your potential customers, if they thought that they would come to Eric's shop and they saw this trademark down the street, and they're, oh, that's Eric's shop, and if they're confused, that means you're potentially going to lose business. Now, the main issue that always comes up is it worth my time to enforce, right? And the question to that could be, there's a number of ways, a number of answers to that question. One is, what is your long-term plan? Are you planning to build a portfolio of strong intellectual property assets, including that trademark? And if that's the case, you want to be sure that you want to protect against people infringing, because if your 5-year plan is to sell your business to a bigger business or another competitor, you have to provide value. And if you could show that
your trademark was the only one on the marketplace, then the valuation is much higher versus everyone on down the street having something similar, whereby the potential purchase of your business would be kind of apprehensive to saying, well, there's no exclusivity here. Why would I want to give you so much money where everyone is using the same trademark? So that's one. The second thing is, okay, loss of potential clients or actual clients because people are confused. The third reason is more of a question of product quality. If the person down the street is, providing substandard services, substandard products, and people purchase them, and they think that's your business, guess what? Your reputation and your brand will be damaged, right? So those are three major reasons why one should, even though you may think, well, I don't see the efficacy, I don't think they're making a lot of money, they're not really affecting my bottom line, my revenues, but there are other considerations involved.
Right, but that law is commonly enforced in franchising when the quality of the francier is substandard to the brand of the franchise.
Right, and that's why they step right in and say, no, you gotta come up the brand, or we're gonna take away this franchise license from you, because their brand, their reputation, for lack of a better term, their reputation is on the line.
So here's a question that's in the feed. It says, can coaches or consultants operate under the guise of intellectual property if the knowledge is based on general best practices of that particular industry? It says, I'm asking this as a fundraising coach. Is my 22 years experience as a professional fundraiser protected as an asset?
No.
Well, I'd like our guest to answer the question.
Because if it was, every time somebody would make a slam. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'd like the lawyer to answer the question.
Yeah. So, I mean, if a coach has been coaching for, donkey years, as you say, 20 years or whatever, and there's a particular method of doing that, that method, generally speaking, is not protectable as a patent, is not protectable as a copyright, it's not in tangible format, unless if you wrote it down as a manual, and then that manual itself can be protected. Copyrights protect artistic expression, and that's then reduced to a tangible format.
So I guess that probably really is the question then, right? How do I, if I wanted to, how do I, what strategies can I take to protect what I do as intellectual property? And then would you be able to guide him in a methodology to do that?
Yes. And so, if I'm just a coach and I'm just telling the kids for 20 years, I get on the field, I remember everything in my mind, and I tell them what to do, and everybody can hear me, then that's not protectable. Now, if I reduce that to a manual, so to speak, that people could follow. Step 1, here's what you do. Step 2, this is what you do, then that manual itself can be protected. Now, I think it's really helpful if I just did a quick overview as to what constitutes each different form of intellectual property, because that may provide insight as to what's protectable and what's not protectable.
Okay.
For instance, a patent is the monopoly that the government gives you for coming up with an invention, right? So that invention could be a process, which is a method of doing things. So if you think about, as I said before, the manufacturing process for the famous Amos cookies, or the process by which your microprocessor in your computer, those things can be patented. Or if it's a machine, or if it's something that don't matter. So that's what a patent is.
Please mute your phone.
Hello, what you doing, man?
Please mute your phone.
Yeah, my phone is Black Bottom. My name is Gerald Bolin. Vincent Spire asked me to come on and talk about the Black Bottom, what they're doing.
Sorry, we ran a little late and we didn't get a chance. Can you call back and I can tell them about your struggle a little later?
It's up to you. What time you want me to get on?
I'll text you.
Okay. All right. The next form, which is trademarks, trademarks are source identifiers. They identify the source of a product or a service. So once again, you see the FedEx name or you see the FedEx logo, you know that that is the company that's providing you with the service versus UPS or DHL. The third form is copyrights, which protects any forms of artistic expression placed in a tangible format, which include books, sculptures, musical scores, musical recordations, and so forth. So, and then the last but not the least, trade secrets, which is much more broader, which covers anything that you can use to give you a competitive edge over the competition. Now, that's a very, very vague definition, but generally speaking, anything that you think can give you a leg up on the competition that you keep secret to yourself can be considered as a trade secret. So now, once again, back to the coach. If the coach, for instance, coached his students under the guise, in secrecy, and said, okay, all the things I'm going to tell you here, you cannot share it with anyone else. You cannot give it to anyone else. You cannot write it down. It's all mine. Then, in that instance, as long as they honor that agreement, then it could be a trade secret. Now, if he wants to really protect it, the way to do it is you reduce it in a manual, in other words, a tangible format, and then you could file a copyright for that manual. And if anyone copies that manual, then they may be liable for copyright infringement. Now, if someone practices it, then it gets a little amorphous. But first things first, you have to figure out whether or not what it is that you have is protectable. And the second of all, if it is protectable, how can you reduce it to a protective format that you cannot protect it as a patent, trademark, or...
Got it. We got a call. Call or go.
Hey, to your guest, I'm just curious. So if a coach has a playbook, right, even though he doesn't copyright the playbook, but this is his playbook that he gives his players on the team, like, look, this is what we're going to do in this situation, in that situation, and so forth. These are the patterns that I've created. Would that be intellectual property? Even though it's not like writing or anything?
Absolutely. Actually, because it's a playbook, and now you've gone into the realm of maybe a process which may be patentable, and also the book itself may be copyrightable. So in that instance, you may even actually have two forms of intellectual property involved. The way that you outline the plays and everything else may be patentable because it's a process, and of course the actual book itself will be copyrightable.
Right. There were 3 that were under review in the 80s. In fact, Bobby Clark had finally got a patent for the patented check play. They were thinking of, they did it late, but they were thinking of Newt Rodney for the forward pass, or the long forward pass, which we now call the bomb. And and UCLA, who invented the slam dunk.
So we got a question or a statement maybe it's a question. It says, I have a friend who started a gift basket business, and she does pretty well. She received a letter from a business to cease and desist from using her business name because it was too close to the name of that other business. So,
okay.
Yeah. So that kind of goes into what I was talking about. So if I had a business, so I go and create a sole proprietorship, right? And I go file down with the county and come up with my name, and then I start producing whatever it is that I'm producing, and then all of a sudden I get I kind of get on, I guess, somebody's radar because my sales numbers are pretty good. And then I get a letter like that, a cease and desist. What do I do?
Well, the first thing you do is you get yourself a lawyer.
Okay, so that's a great plug right here. Wait a minute. Alonzi.
Preferably call your firm.
Wait, Alonzi. I just pitched.
The first thing you do
is call Alonzi.
Call your lawyer is,
I said the first thing you do is call Alonzi.
Right. But also it also depends on that is saying, listen, I know you exist. Please stop. Right.
and everything will be fine. Then you say, okay, you write them back a letter, and you certify that you're not still doing what you.
Oh, I think all of my. Do I still?
Not going to be detrimental to your business or to you personally.
Right.
Right. So because some people draft a letter themselves and send it out, and then when you realize, you know what, I didn't really catch everything I wanted. I still have to stop this guy because he's making a lot of money. He's drawing a lot of revenue. He's taking a lot of my business. And then they get a lawyer. Next thing you know, you get sued, even though you got the cease and desist letter. Right? So it's always good to, just like anything, when you have a stomach ache, you don't just roll around and hope that it goes away. You go see a doctor, right?
Right.
Make sure that everything's fine and you get the right treatment and the right guidance that you need in order to alleviate your pain. And the other thing is, especially in Eric's hypothetical, he's making a little bit of money. Now what do I do? Because now for him to rebrand or change his name, that's going to take a lot of momentum. He's got to pay some money to rebrand. He's got to pay some money to recapture the market because it's identified the trademark that he's using. And once you take away that trademark, he has to come up with something new.
Right. So, Alonzi, why don't you? So guys, just so you know, we're on the phone with Alonzi Edifu. He is an intellectual properties attorney, and why don't you take the time now to give contact information in case people after the show would like to contact you and ask other questions, and an email or a web address where they could learn more about you.
Okay, right, sure, thanks. So my website address is Edifu Law. Let me spell it for you. ETU, F as in Frank, U as in United, G as in George, H as in Harry, Law. You could send me a message through that website. There's also what we call, I developed over the years what I call IP questions. And the reason why I developed it is, I've come across a lot of small businesses. I represent a lot of small businesses, and actually I do a lot of presentations to small businesses. In New York here, we have an organization called Workshop in Business Opportunities, WeBo, which caters to small businesses. I've been lecturing with them for 15 years. And what I realized is a lot of these small businesses, they all have, maybe everyone has an IP issue, intellectual property issue. But the fact is, the reality is most of them are either very, very young businesses that really haven't generated, so they don't have the budget for some of the things that they need. However, they still need guidance, right? It's always good to be able to provide guidance. And what I did was I created a page on my website called IP Questions. Actually, you could go, the domain name is ipquestions.com, whereby you could select a time and provide a really small synopsis of what your issue is. And then once you make a payment or whatever the case may be, then one of us will be able to review the information that you sent us and we'll call you back with the answers that you need. And the reason why I set it up that way is because I realized people come into your office to sit down for a consultation is very, very inefficient. Because first of all, they're coming first time, they're trying to get to know who you are, and you're asking them questions, you're trying to answer them at the same time, you don't have the time to go back and do the research and give them the answers that they really need. Very, very inefficient. Then they spend a whole hour there, and at the end of the day, not go home with anything that they really need. So I created this thing called ipquestions.com, whereby you can go there, you place your questions. And of course, I have a word limit because I don't want, dissertations in there. And then we'll review the questions, and if we have questions about your questions, we can always communicate with you at that point. And then, of course, you have the scheduled time where we could give you related answers that you need. So a couple ways you can reach me. One, my website. Two, if you have very pertinent business-related questions that you really need to get an answer for and guidance for, ipquestions.com. And as a result of being on this show, I'm providing a discount of about $50 off. Code IPQ50D. That's IPQ50D. I'll always repeat it again. Because
what I've been telling students of my presentations all the time, especially small businesses, is you need to be proactive in the way you would deal with professional services, whether it's an attorney or an accountant or marketing person, because when you're proactive about something, the stitching time saves 9, you save yourself a lot of heartache in the long run. And actually, I came up with a presentation called Costly IP Mistakes That Small Businesses Should Avoid, based on what my clients have done before they came to me. Some clients have lost out $60,000 because they made mistakes that could have been remedied by just calling me in time. So, and if you're a small business, $5,000 out-of-pocket expense to remedy something that you messed up on, or even $60,000. Or one case, one of my clients, she missed out on being able to collect up to $2 million from the infringer. If she had the guidance and advice that I could have provided, or anyone else, and any other IT attorney could have provided them. So,
two questions for the budget challenged entrepreneur. Do you have a layaway system?
No, I don't. Because I'm not selling product here. I'm selling, advice, right? So once I give you that advice, it's gone, right? And you can make a decision. I don't want to pay them anymore, or thank you for the advice. Bye. And that's the thing. I had to learn the hard way that even though I have a law practice, I also have a business, right? So, and also the other thing I also learned was not everyone that walks through your door should be your client. You want clients that value the information that you're providing them. Here's why, and then people ask you, so why do you charge for consultation? Why don't you give free consultations? For 2 reasons. One, I have a business. 2, the person that pays money, whether it's a dime or $1 or $500 or $5,000 for anything, places value on that information that they're receiving. And 10 times out of 10 are more likely to actually act on that information than if they got it for free. Why? Because they invested in it. They had skin in the game. So it helps me and helps them at the same time. Now, of course, the question is how much is too much? That's up to people to make that analysis. But, when you pay for something, because you have people that go to every free presentation out there in the world, they got the information, they like the information, they like the hors d'oeuvres, and they go home and sit on it. They don't do anything with it.
Right.
So
if you have an idea that's going to make you millions, then $5,000 should not be an actual issue. But the second question, there have been intellectual properties that they've taken them to court and they've given them a timeline to continue on or have that monopoly on that intellectual property, like such as acetaminophen. So,
what's the question?
Well, the question is, why were they awarded, a timeline rather than to continue to have the monopoly on their intellectual property?
Well, I think what you're alluding to is, I don't want to call it an extension, but so in the pharmaceutical industry, I'm not a pharmaceutical industry expert, but I know from the cases I've read, and also from other experiences. Generally speaking, if you have a drug, you're given, you get a patent for the drug, you have the typical 20-year from the effective filing date, year monopoly on that drug. Now, I believe make a modification. If you could find another, there's a quirk in the law in which you can have a different application of the drug for a different condition, medical condition, in which case you may apply for an extension. I think it's 6 months. I can't remember how long it is. In which case you are given a certain extension to the life monopoly of your patent. Now, you may think 6 months is not a lot. I think it's 6 months. But let's say 6 months. You may think 6 months is not a lot. But in the pharmaceutical industry, one of my companies that I used to work with before I went to law school, we built a process train plant for a particular drug. That drug was slated to make them, I think it was $1 million in sales a month or a week.
Yeah, $1 million a week. And that was without any marketing or anything else. So you could think about it. So 6 months is a lot of money. Right. And also the other thing is also in the pharmaceutical world, you have your brand names like Pfizer and other big companies, Roche and so on and so forth. But you also have the generics that are waiting in the wings, waiting for the patent to expire, and they're just jumping in market and manufacture the product that was on patent. So you think about acetaminophen. I don't know who came up with it first, whether it's Tylenol or whoever. Once that patent was expired, because the deal with the government is, once your monopoly is over, you dedicate it to the public, which means anyone can use it. So once that patent's off patents, that drug is off patents, all the generics can swoop into the marketplace, start making the same brand, sell it for 10 cents on the dollar, and make some money based on volume.
So does
and you no longer have the monopoly.
So Alonzi, does that same thing apply to anything else? So we were talking before about cookie recipes or pie recipes or other kinds of things that one would seek to protect.
No, it doesn't. And also, as I said earlier, recipes, because they're not at the atomic level, the innovation is not atomic. You just mix in, flour with eggs and chocolate chips. That's really not patentable. But if you go to the molecular, the atomic level, which is what, each of these drugs where the innovation is much at a more granular level, then you could get a patent for. A mixture can be protected as a trade secret, rather.
Yeah.
But to your point, you don't get an extension for any other kind of patent other than the pharmaceutical exceptions that we have. Once your 20-year monopoly is done, that's it. It's dedicated to the public. Anyone could swoop.
But a lot of companies steal it by changing the process of the molecular mixture of certain products.
Yeah.
Well, they don't steal it. If they change the process, that means they're not really doing what you have patented, right? So that's what we call a design around it. So I remember when I worked in the construction industry, you could either use copper cables, or you could use aluminum cables. And of course, from the owner's standpoint was, okay, I don't have the $5 million for the copper cables. Can we use something else? Yes, we could use. It's either, okay, they're using copper. Can we use something else? Yes, you could use aluminum, or we could use a different method of reaching the same result. Do that, then you're no longer in infringement.
So let me ask you a question.
Wait,
maybe you talked to...
Quick, one question. I have one question. What do, and hi, I'm Diane. I've just been listening to you guys. What do you do when you have, like, for instance, a CBD type product, what that you're putting out, I don't know, lotions or topicals or stuff like that? How do you protect that? And at what stage do you come to see an attorney? Is it before you put your product out to the market, or is it okay after? Like, how does that process work that they would connect with you as an attorney?
Ideally, before you product. And why do you want to do that? You want the attorney to, first of all, find out what your plans are, right? What your 5-year, I call it the 5-year plan question. That's one, what your product is. 2, and how you intend to market the product, and who your market is, and who your potential competitors are, infringers are. That way, when you're building up your business plan, you build it around, the business and legal expertise that has been provided to you to avoid these potential problems. Now, if you already have a product, it's still not late to come to an attorney. As soon as possible is my answer to that. And it's not, just because I'm an attorney, but because, you want to be in a position where you get the guidance to avoid problems. Now, making a product and bringing it to market is problematic enough, but there may be other things in the marketplace, nuances that you're not aware of. For instance, what are the regulatory issues that you have to deal with? Aside from infringement, thing, from regulatory issues, what does the state say about you selling this product? Can you even sell this product in the form that you're selling it, right? And which department is to say for regulating your product. That's something people don't even think about, because not only do you have a problem from third parties trying to knock off your product, but you also have the state telling you, you have to do this. If you don't do this, we're going to shut you down. Second thing is, another issue may be if you have people working for you on contract to sell this product for you. Are they employees or are they independent contractors? It's not what you say they are. It's what the IRS says they are, and also what the state Department of Labor says they are. So you have to be very careful, for instance, when you have people working for you in that context, as to which definition and whose definition you're using. Because at the end of the day, you could get a letter from the Department of Labor saying, you owe them $25,000 in fines. Like, what the hell? Like, well, yeah. They'll say, well, this person was working for you as an employee. You're like, no, she was an independent contractor. In your mind. So these are all nuances in business that a lot of people are not aware of. That's why they should, they train lawyers. They train us to be issue spotters, right? To find all the potential issues that we can find. We can't find all the issues, but we can find a lot of issues that no layperson may be able to find. Even though I'm an IP attorney, when people come to me, these are things that come to my mind. I say, well, have you considered this thing? Have you considered that? Right? Because the sooner you get that advice, and the sooner those advice that the guidance that you get from the better it will be for you in the long run, because you avoid those problems, so to speak.
So listen, when people think about a lawyer, they think a lot of money. Right, so patents, talking about trademarks, copyrights. What kind of expenditure would people generally be looking at to protect their property? Like, if you had to give a range, and maybe you can't, I don't know, but I can imagine that some of the folks who are listening to the show, I just created a logo. I don't have the money to go and to protect it. And should they? The strategy behind whether or not they should.
Right. So I guess the two parts of that question is, what is the range? What is the cost for protecting them? Well, first of all, it depends on the intellectual property you're talking about, right? So if you're talking about a patent, patents could cost you anything from $4,000 to $20,000, right? If it's a simple mechanical patent, or if it's a biochemical ingredient being used in the molecule, the range is, it could even be more than that, right? It all depends on what the invention is. And also, more importantly, it depends on the value you place on this particular intellectual property asset, whether it's a patent, trademark, copyright, or even that trade secret. If you don't place any value on it, you would say, well, I don't care. If anyone knocks it off, we'll figure it out at that point in time. Okay, that's what it is. But if you say, okay, fine, in 10 years, 10 years, I want to do this. I have a portfolio of intellectual property assets that when I come to the table with a potential buyer, I say, look, I have 10 patents, I have 20 trademarks, I have, 15 copyrights, and I also have my business. And this is my price. So it depends on, one, the valuation that you place on your intellectual property, two, your long-term plan, and three, the type of intellectual property asset that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Trademarks could be anything. It depends on the firm, and also depends your arrangement with the firm. Sometimes people will say, you know what, I'll file it for you for free, or people will say, you know what, I'll file it for you for whatever an amount to be. I think according to the AIPLA, which is the American Intellectual Property Law Association, they normally do the survey every year, and the last time I checked the range for trademarks, I think for filing the application itself is anything from, I believe, it's $800 to $2,500. Okay. And you just have to figure out what that firm is charging, and if you want to work something out with them, you can work something out with them if it's possible, or if not, that's just what the price is. But you also have to see what service they're providing you, because it's not just, at least with me, if I file I don't just file an application for people, I also do some other things for people. So that's why you also have to make that question part of your interview question for the firm is like, well, if I'm paying this much money, what's the scope of the services being provided?
Sure. All right. Well, listen, guys, we're on the phone with Alazi Etifu, and you can reach him. I posted the link to his website. You should certainly check him out. And you know, in terms of building your business, building your brand, you know, figure out whether the strategy that you're considering suggests to you that you should look at building these IP assets. And again, there's a product code that I think I put in here, IPQ50D, which would get you a $50 off of the fee. Is that correct?
Yes, off the IP questions fee, which is basically it's a consultation fee. You know, you go to IPQuestions.com, you select the time, and you put in your question. I mean, for instance, you can say, well, I have a hairdresser salon, and I have different formulations, blah blah blah. How can I protect it, and how can I protect my name, something like that. So we get the information ahead of time, and we can analyze information and then provide a cogent answer for you. And at the time that you select, we'll call you back and say, you know, here's our answer. Here's some questions that we have, and you know that could be done very efficiently that way. One other thing on if I may, Eric, one other thing I wanted to say was a lot of people may not have that $800 to $2,500 range for a budget for a trademark, and I realized that. And you know, I've dealt with a lot of small businesses in the past, and what I realized was while they may not have money, $800 or more to pay for a trademark, because they started off, what can they do in the meantime until they make that $800 or $2,500 purchase or investment of an attorney to file an application for them? And if you recall, trademarks in the United States, you could accrue trademarks through common law rights, which does not require a registration. So I said, well, what can I do? And what I did was I came up with a presentation whereby I teach people how to use the trademarks in a common law way where they can accrue rights. And that way they can have some kind of right, at least, before they actually engage an attorney or they actually go and file an application for a registered trademark, either with the state or federal government.
Okay.
And so, you know, right. So that's something else. If anyone's interested, just shoot me an email. I will have the presentation available and to those who are interested. But again, it's finding a way to, one, provide information to businesses that's valuable to them and enables them to act on it, and also at the same time have them accrue their trademark rights before they could either engage me or engage someone like me or file an application that will cost them money.
Well, I suggest they engage you. Listen, Alazi, I appreciate you taking the time, sharing your expertise with our listeners, and I'll give you a call after the show because I want to talk to you about a couple things.
Can I ask one quick question?
Go ahead.
Do you handle clients that use intellectual properties as investments or future investments?
In other words, they use it as collateral?
No, not use it as collateral to pay it, but they'll come in and pay you, but they want to get a patent on their intellectual properties for future investments. Like, I know a few attorneys who get clients that come in for future investments on intellectual properties for things like, you know, flying cars and one who is suing right now because his intellectual property was the light fixture that you speak into in it, or voice recognition for fixtures. Do you get a lot of those?
So you're saying, do I meet a lot of clients who have inventions that have not materialized, but you know they may materialize in the future? Is that what the question is? Like, correct. You know, like you said, the flying car. We don't have flying cars right now, but if someone came with an invention that said, "I've invented a flying car," you're asking me if I come across people like that.
Correct.
Yes, I do. I mean, of course, it goes across the board, and the applications are across the board. But that's the whole point of innovation, right? And inventions. Inventions are problem solvers that don't currently exist. On a daily basis, people come to me with an invention. Often than not, it's something that hasn't been invented, or sometimes it's just something that has been invented, but that particular person was not aware of it. Until they come to me and I tell them, well, if we come to the search and we find something, then it's been invented. One of my clients had a wonderful invention for a baseball cap, and he thought it was the best thing that he could have invented, and he didn't find anything on the marketplace. We did a search, and we found the exact thing. But here's the thing. Here's a good part of it all. Is that even though it was patented, it had expired. So what I did to him was I said, and he was a good friend. I took the patent. I said, here you go. Here's a patent that we found, but guess what? You could practice it because it's expired. Wow.
All right.
So all I had to do was just give him the patent and say, here, you don't have to forget about your sharp drawings. Here you go. Here.
All right. So again, Alazi, thank you very, very much for calling in and being patient with us and answering the questions. I would ask you to take time, if you can, and look in the feed. There may be some additional questions that you might be able to answer for some of the listeners and viewers.
Okay.
All right.
Which feed? Which platform?
Into my Facebook feed. I'll link you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll link you into it. But if you go to the Eric Dawson Show on Facebook, you'll see the feed there.
Okay. Great. And thank you so much for the opportunity. I really, really enjoyed it. And everyone stay safe, stay healthy, and stay well.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
So, Diane?
Yes, sir.
So, do you have, is your logo trademarked? Or?
Nope, and I ain't worried about them taking it either. Because if they do, I'm just going to do it in a different script. I'm flexible like that.
Come get it.
It's basically my name, more so my name, and I'm going to ask them, do I need to trademark my name? That's more important than anything else.
Yeah, that's a brand.
Well, you know what? Do you remember with the Los Angeles Lakers, Pat Riley, when they were talking about after they won back-to-back championships, and then they were talking about winning the third one, he called it three-peat, and then he went and trademarked that. Because he created a new term, right? And he was able to trademark. So you can't use, I mean, I guess you could use it, but you can't profit from it, right? Yeah.
So if I trademark my name, then I can stop people from putting out bad literature about me during campaign season.
No, Diane is too. Well, listen, I wish we had him on the phone, because if you let's say I wonder. So if I
you may need to check him back, Eric. We need to find out about that's more important.
No, but Diane is too common a name. But if you were to name your child some crazy name, right? So some bizarre name. The question is, could you trademark that name, right? And then nobody else could use it. But nobody else might want to name their kid that crazy name, whatever it was. But Diane is a common name, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say no.
I'm not saying just Diane. I'm talking about my whole name.
Diane.
My whole name is my business name.
Right.
Diane L. Murray is my business name.
Okay, so
that's my whole business name.
So you wanna know if you
are
can.
You incorporated as Diane L. Murray?
Wait a minute. Let me.
Then it's already trademarked.
Hello, caller, go.
No, I was just going to say, you were talking about the Pat Riley thing, and I was thinking, let's get ready to rumble. The guy, what's his name?
Michael Butler.
Michael Butler.
Yeah.
Yeah, he trademarked that. Yeah.
It's trademarked. You say that, and there's profit, you better pay him. And he's a billionaire. He's a part-time billionaire. But they pay him to say that's free.
But this is how greedy he is. His brother actually does the announcing for the MMA fights, and he can't say, let's get ready to rumble. He had to say, it's time.
Well, look at the other trademark fight for slang. The women on that TV show, what was with the two with Countess Vaughn? That show that she had. She was sued by the group that made the TV show What's Happening because they had hey and he had hey.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Hey, listen. I want to talk about the lawsuit of what was his name? Vanilla Ice. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Remember what was it?
Ice Baby.
No. It was. He said your beat goes like this. Doom 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 doom. Doom 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 doom. And my beat goes doom 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 doom. He said, "Can you hear it?" Doom doom doom. Yeah, it didn't work out for him. And who else recently got sued?
Marvin Gaye's family sued Farrell.
Yeah,
with Robin Thicke song.
And Robin Thicke.
Yeah.
That's
Pharrell
right.
got sued.
That's right.
Yep.
So gotta be careful, guys. No infringing. So
Well,
listen,
at least
Diane,
MC
what
Hammer
else?
was smart. As soon as he came up with "Can't Touch Us," he sent Rick James a check.
Yeah. So Diane, what else is you're always my pop news person.
Oh gosh, really? You want that right now? Okay,
No.
let me see.
Well,
Okay, no, I'll give it. Well, I'll give you a little
or
half in, half out.
I mean, because the
We
question
talked about-
is, do we want to go light or do we want to go heavy? Because I got heavy.
No, we're gonna mix it up. So, we talked about the other day about restaurants and social distancing. So now there's a restaurant that's talking about greenhouse dining. So it's like mini greenhouses over each table that the patrons would
Like
sit
the cone
under.
of silence.
Yeah. So,
do you remember
a
that?
Dutch restaurant has found this ingenious way of enforcing social distancing and staying open by seating its diners inside individual greenhouses.
Yeah.
So people are doing it. They like it.
Well, listen,
Yeah,
I was
they're
watching.
eating
What's
in
the
a plastic
guy's
bubble.
name? Wait. What's the guy's? He has a show where he saves bars. Like he goes in and he rescue. I think it's called Bar Rescue.
Bar Rescue.
Right. And he was actually on MSNBC last night and was talking about the bar industry. And I did not know this. He said next to the federal government, he said the restaurant industry is the largest single employer, next to the federal government. And so, but he was saying that the number of restaurants that are going to close, and then he was saying that it was very interesting listening to him, and I wish I would have recorded it. But he was saying that he sees it being a third. He said that you're going to have a third of people that come out first. He said, and that third are going to be, I think he said, if somebody saw the episode, you maybe want to correct me, but I think he said the first third are going to be like the adventurers, right? And then and then he said then you're going to have the second third of people who are going to come out based on what they see happen to those adventurers, right? So
exactly.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you go ahead. Let's see
That'll
what
be
happens
me.
to you. That's
You
right.
test the waters first.
That's right. You go ahead. You be the guinea pig. And then so that's going to be the second third. And they said the third is going to be the most difficult third. But it's the third that the industry has to have because those are that's the affluent third. Right? And those people are going to wait until there's a vaccine or until something else happens. So he said that because of that, a lot of restaurants are not going to be able to survive because they won't be able to make it without having the complete, business coming in. But then he was saying about innovation. So the greenhouse thing may be one. He said a lot of restaurants have gone to family style serving. Right, where they package, an entire meal, including dessert, for $4, and then they sell it at a price point of like $39.95. So you can order a complete meal for your household and have it delivered. And so some of them have been able to survive like that. But he said it's going to be rough going. So we'll see.
Well, I got another one for you. This one is super funny. So there was a woman in Ohio that was placed under arrest for reportedly calling 911 to ask for help to extinguish her fire in her crotch. So Katrina Morgan, 50, called the cops in Port Clinton at about 10 p.m. Saturday to allegedly falsely report her ussy was ablaze. And she needed the
there's so the a fire down. They say there's a fire down under.
Yeah, so Morgan asked the cops if the fire department hose is coming, and if it was working, I need somebody to come put it out with their hose. The police arrived. They find out that she's at a friend's house and had been drinking. Of course, the cops went to arrest her for filing a false report and disrupting police operations. She became agitated, yelled at the officers, resisted arrest. Relentlessly, when the officer threatened her with a stun gun, she decided to, come along peacefully.
That is hilarious.
I'd like to know, what was she drinking? Fireball? Oh, that's a good one. I ain't even thinking that for years.
That is hilarious.
Excuse me, I've got a hot pocket that needs to be extinguished.
There you go, hot pocket.
Oh, man. That's the funniest
See, the stuff that happens when there's massive quantities of alcohol involved.
Unbelievable.
But see, it's an essential thing, so they keep it open. Just for times like this.
Oh, man.
I don't know. Listen, we've got, I was watching the news. And Vincent, you were mentioning it earlier about, what was on Rachel Maddow's show yesterday. And, I swear I was never going to mention her name again. And I know you are in love with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, I think she's brilliant. But like I said to you before, I think that she has a bias. And so she doesn't use the same investigative reporting acumen that she has, or tenacity on both sides of the aisle, right? So she's like your dog Diane, right? Is vicious toward everybody else, but is a lap dog to the family. And so that's not what we need, as I'm, in terms of our media personalities. We need somebody who is the lapdog to the people, but we can unleash them on both sides of the aisle, and they'll do the work that she seems to only want to do on that side of the aisle. But anyway.
But incredibly, she did a great job talking about two things. The Louisiana State Women's Prison.
Oh, did you hear, Diane? 195 inmates.
Yes.
And 192 of them tested positive.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, 60% of their staff positive for COVID-19. And they're doing nothing for them. They're sending letters out to everybody. Everybody to give them some help. There's no masks, no ventilators. They basically have them locked down with their roommates. Their roommates have it, they have it, and they are suffering bad.
But can I say this? I had a moment yesterday. I was watching Steve Kornacki. I told you I have MSNBC back in my house now. At one point I had just completely immersed myself in Fox infotainment, and I tell you, man, it's just a completely alternate universe. But it is important for you guys to watch it so that you understand what's going on in areas of the country that you don't live in. See, if you're just getting the news out of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, you really don't understand what's happening in these rural areas of this country. But in watching this, there were two doctors on yesterday, And one doctor was talking about this pandemic and the economy and it opening purely from a health perspective. The other one had tremendous respect and empathy for the doctor who was talking about it from purely health perspective, but was talking about it from an economic perspective. And it was just very interesting to watch because to me, it was the first time I saw two people having this conversation in a holistic way without trying to score political points. And it made me realize that, and maybe it was the crassness in which a Chris Christie said it, or the polarization of a Donald Trump, right, and what he's doing. But there are some realities that I think we have to come to grips with. If we're looking at this thing being around for a while, we can't just stay in place. I don't think we can. And we're not right now, right? Because when you go to the supermarket, there are people who are working there. When you have doctors who are working, you have nurses who are working. When you go to get gasoline, you have people pumping gas. So we're not completely sheltered in place. And the economy has to open. Now, the thing that they were talking about, and this is where I think folks on one side are having a conversation, not on the other, is that we have to have the testing. We do have to have the contact tracing. We have to have all of that stuff so that when we do open, how we direct businesses to function is based on data. And the biggest problem is not in opening, but saying, hey, listen, we don't want to open without having data to direct us in terms of what's coming and how to mitigate it. But it was a very interesting conversation that I witnessed. But the economy right now is being ravaged.
Right. But it goes well with what they were saying yesterday on the other show, Riley's show, that we are now so polarized with money, and the president is so polarized with getting the economy going because he thinks that that's going to be his ticket to being reelected. That the university, Arizona State, the governor hired the Arizona State University to whatever data that they had using FEMA and the National Registry to give them a scenario or a model to open up the state. Based on the information they had, they said the same thing that you said. There's no contact tracing, so we don't know where the hot spots are. There are no tests, and the test results are going slow. So we don't know where people have it. And then when we do find out they have it, more than likely it's already spread in that area and expeditiously. And they said, to be honest with you, at the present condition, that we cannot even reconsider looking at doing this report again until mid-June. And then yesterday, Donald Trump went to Arizona and talked with the governor and showed him the information that he had from FEMA. And the governor concluded that he was not going to follow the model of the professors and scientists at Arizona State University. He was going to follow Donald Trump's model. So Arizona will start a soft open tomorrow.
Well, look, here's the deal. And people have to figure this out. And I posted this in one of my feeds. Just because the states are opening doesn't mean that you have to go to these businesses. I'm going to say that again. Just because they're opening doesn't mean that you have to patronize these businesses. Now, one of the challenges is as they open, for people who are employed, you now have to go to work because you won't be able to collect unemployment. So there's an issue there that needs to be addressed. But these businesses will quickly shut down if they're not patronized. If they're realizing they're not making money, they're not going to stay open. So then they're going to let those employees go again, and then those employees will be able to collect unemployment. So if you want to help those employees, if you believe that they should be they should be protected, the best way for you to protect them is by not patronizing those businesses, so those businesses have to shut back down, right? In areas where you see data that shows that there are risks. But we have to try to figure all of that stuff out. But look, here's the deal, and we talked about this, Vincent. This is all, everybody's making political calculations. Donald Trump's best chance of winning is to have that V or U curve in the economy, right? The economy doesn't have to come all the way back. It just has to be on a trajectory. And right now it's not. If he can bend it, I'm sorry?
According to James Carville, Donald Trump doesn't have a snowball chance in hell.
I don't listen to James Carville. I don't. James Carville, if you were to talk to him during the, most of these pundits, I got to go back to 2015, right? They were wrong. And so if I'm sitting with James Carville right now, I go, listen, I was right in 2015. You were wrong. So why am I listening to you now? Because I'm looking objectively. There are a lot of people who have emotionalized this whole thing. They emotionalized it in 2015, and they're emotionalizing it now. And all I'm doing is looking, and that's why I immersed myself in Fox News. So when people say, I would never listen to Fox News, I'm telling you, you can't ignore those people. That's what happened in 2015, right? The idea was we're just going to ignore the deplorables. We're going to ignore these swing states. We're going to ignore all of this stuff, and we're just going to run our drill. It doesn't work like that. You got to pay attention to all of it. And so I try to listen to, and that's again why I put down what are the news stations you listen to get your news, right? Because it's not just you who live in this country; those people who vote on the other side of the aisle as well. And how are they getting their information? So when you interact with them, be good to understand how they've been indoctrinated. But in terms of Donald Trump, I believe that his only chance of winning is to change that, bend that curve in terms of the economy. Give people hope, right? The elections are based on hope, aspirations. And so if in the middle of this, he can say, hey, listen, things are turning around. Things are getting better. You don't want to interrupt this curve that is now taking place. I think that he believes that is his best chance of winning. And so they have to open the economy, because if they don't, then he's going to get bludgeoned with it by the Democratic Party.
Well, so far, it's not looking good. And I understand objective looking, and I understand,
Have
opposition.
you seen the polls? Have you seen the polls?
I saw the polls last night that they did.
Not the national poll. The national poll doesn't matter, right? This is going to be an election won just like in 2015. They were looking at the national polls, right? And Hillary Clinton was up in the national polls. But it's not a national race. We know that now. It's based on the Electoral College, and it's based on these swing states.
Yeah, it was based on the swing states, but the polls I saw was done by Notre Dame. And they have Donald Trump losing by 15 points.
Losing where? Nationally?
Losing, yes.
No, that's what I'm saying. Nationally is not going to matter. See, because when you count the 15 points, you're looking at states like New Jersey, you're looking at states like New York, you're looking at states like California. Those are states
he's not going to win.
That he's not. That's right. That he's not going to win at all, right? But he doesn't expect to win those.
Right, but see, the beauty
But I'm saying when you talk about Michigan, when you talk about Ohio, you talk about Pennsylvania, Wisconsin.
Yeah. We're talking about Arizona.
Yeah, what did the poll? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what did the poll say there? That's so what we're gonna do. What we're gonna start doing. I think it's too early now, but we're gonna start pulling polls and peeling back the onion on those. And we'll do it nationally, and we'll do it in terms of these different states as well. And then I'll try as best I can, because when they do the polls, it's about looking inside those tabs and the way the questions are formulated. But
right, and who they're asking them to.
And that's absolutely right, and who they're asking. And again, that's why if you listen over here, you'll get one set of numbers. If you listen over there, you'll get a completely different set of numbers. Why? Because the red team wants to send the red people out, right, pushing a particular narrative, and the blue team wants to send the blue folks out pushing another narrative. And what we want to do is we want to be educated on what the truth is.
And all it does is it push the black people further underground. I'm sorry, the black team.
Yeah, it does. Doesn't it? It just gets us right away. So listen, remember I said, and I don't know if you read the article. Diane, did you read the article that I sent you this morning?
Which one?
Which one?
How many articles did I send
you?
W.E.B. Du Bois.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, I did.
So that is exactly what, and you know what? Not only that, but my man Eddie Glaude said the same thing that I'm saying. You know, and I'm sticking to my guns. And if you guys haven't read the article, what was the
I'll put it in the feed now.
Yeah, please put that in the feed. If you haven't read that article, Diane's putting the article in the feed, but it explains why this is a false choice for us. And, you know, and it was interesting because I had a discussion with a guy this morning on a previous post I put up, and he talked about me confusing people that we have to choose this one because the other one will win. And I said, but if we're always losing and we're not actively trying to win, but we're always trying to help somebody else win, then what are we really doing? And so
we're choosing the lesser of the two evils, which is what we do every presidential election since, with the exception of Obama. And then there were still people on the fence about him. Yeah. We consistently not support great candidates, so they get washed out in the primaries. Keep in mind, a great candidate got washed out because of the black vote.
So I'm going to read what Eddie Glaude said. Eddie Glaude said this, and I want you to know who Eddie Glaude is for you guys who don't watch the news. And I haven't seen him. Well, I haven't had MSNBC. Has he been on MSNBC lately?
Yes.
Okay. So, because I thought they'd kick him off now, but because the brother's on code, right? And, you know. But anyway, Eddie Glaude, he's the chair of the Department of African American Studies at Princeton University, and he wrote for Time that his values are informed by the quest for economic and racial justice. Now, I say we need to be fighting for economic and political power. He said economic and racial justice. He wants a president who fundamentally transforms the circumstances of the most vulnerable in this country and believes that the Democrats have failed miserably in addressing these issues. Come November, while not completely abandoning the franchise, meaning the Democratic Party, Glaude, like so many others, has said that he will leave the ballot for President blank. Now. Mic drop, boom.
So he just voted for Donald Trump.
No. See, this is where we got to stop that. You know what he did? He stood up for his values. See, you got to stop that. No,
yeah, he stood up for his values, but he screwed the rest of the country.
No, he stood up for his values. See, you got to stop that. He did something. He stood up for his values. You can't push and marginalize his values like that.
I'm not marginalizing his values.
Yes, you did.
I'm maximizing the results.
No, the very first thing you did when I said he said he was going to do this, you said, well, he's voting. No, that's not what he did. He said, this is what I believe, right? He said he believes in a quest for economic and racial justice. Now, so the question is, do we make strides toward those things here? And he's concluded no. So he said, I am going to use my energy in other elections striving for racial and economic justice. That's what he said. And so then you marginalize it, you minimalize it by saying, well, then this is what he's doing. And I'm saying there lies the for me the problem. It is that's not what he's doing. We have to he has to, what do they say? Stand for something or fall for, wait, what is it? Is that how it goes?
You don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Right. And so he's standing for something. Because for decades we've been falling for everything.
Correct. But here's the thing. Here's my thing. Okay? And I'm going to quote Booker T. Washington in his book in 1903, The Souls of Black Folks, which he expressed his belief that economic advancement was unattainable without political and civil rights. That's what we need to stand for. And if we do have a candidate who's pandering for the black vote, then we need to make that our narrative. Okay. We need to make that agenda in the forefront.
Right, but what we understand is no. So let's get beyond a candidate. Okay. What he's saying is this, and this is what I agree with. He's saying the Democratic Party has failed us miserably.
I agree.
Wait a minute. So it's not about just a candidate. It's about a structure. And so when you say, well, now within this structure that has birthed this candidate, we want to now have a conversation about what again? You understand what I'm saying? So we can look and we can see a track record of abject failure. And now you say, in this moment in time, in this snapshot in time, we want to have some conversation, and we expect that there's going to be some reasonableness by this party, either one, that has failed us. And what he's concluded is, look, this is nothing but a waste of time, right? And in fact, it is insanity to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again and expect a different result. Now, if the only result that you want, and then he wants obviously a different one, if the only result you want is to try to get rid of Donald Trump, if that is the end game for you, if that is your lifelong mission, then I guess that's where you're going to go vote. But what Eddie Glaude is saying is this. He said, I want more. He said, and I, Eric Dawson, want more, right? I want economic and political power. And to me, dangling a piece on a chessboard and saying, knock that piece off. But you're not guaranteeing that if I make that move that I'm any closer to getting checkmate, then that piece is really just a distraction. Because the game is about checkmate, not about removing that piece. But when you get me focused on trying to move, just take that piece, Eric, just take that piece. Then I'm missing all of the other 62 squares on the board. Because all I'm looking at is the square that my piece is on and the square that piece is on. But all these other pieces are moving on the board around me. And then you say, worry about those pieces later. No.
Well, Eric, let me explain this to you.
So I am in alignment with W.E.B. Du Bois, and I'm in alignment with Eddie Glaude.
Well, I'm in alignment
the chairman of the Department of African American Studies at Princeton.
Well, this is, and I explained this to you 3 years ago, that the Democrats have always considered, never campaigning in black neighborhoods because they've already considered that they had their vote, which means that they have particularly failed us. The Democrats got their same hands in the same cookie jar as the Republicans. Ever went out there and said Black Lives Matter, we wouldn't have this injustice in our local, in our school boards. But hold on. But let's look at one particular thing. We're talking about the 2020 election for president. Donald Trump is not our long-term goal. Getting rid of Donald Trump, it should be our short-term mission.
Call a go.
I just want to talk about the illusion of Joe Biden.
Oh, I like that, the illusion.
It's an illusion of Joe.
Hold on, let me get my seatbelt on. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, you may want to put that 5-point harness seatbelt on.
His policies and him as a moderate, all the way to the right type of moderate. And the reason Obama picked him because he needed that balance. And the mastery of Obama was that he could admit that in his political maturity that I need that section of the vote. Now, you can take a chance on Joe Biden looking at all of his policies and all of his stances, and nobody's perfect. But for me to say that I'm going to look at that and then decide whether I'm going to vote for him or not has no bearing on me giving my vote to Trump if I don't vote for Biden. That is what I heard from what Eric read, from what the brother was saying. So, and Joe Biden is the illusion that all black Democrats are under, and all the shortcomings of the party. And then you got to stay in line, and they can jump across and vote Chris Christie, they can jump across and vote for Republicans. As a party, they can do it in different states. But if you dare open up your mouth at this particular time, I'm just going to look at Joe Biden for what he really is. Not the illusion of, the Vice President, Uncle Joe, smile his face. No, I'm talking about decades of policies that have been detrimental to our community. Yeah. So, I understand what the brother's saying. We ain't getting no economic and political power by giving our vote. Well, let me not say our vote. Mine, if he don't get my vote, I'm going to tell you that right now. He don't get my vote. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Well, I can tell you this, and when you follow the elections, it's this. The reason Trump came into power was because we had a lot of no votes for Hillary.
No, see, stop. No. Vincent, stop for a second. No, you know why we didn't get a lot of votes?
Can I say one thing?
Wait.
We had a lot.
Eric, let me just say this. Biden ran for president 2 other times. I think 2 other times. And he failed miserably because white people didn't vote. So now when we don't vote for him, they're gonna put it on us that we didn't vote for him. So I just want you to understand that it's science. There's no big difference between Biden and
well, because white people didn't vote for him doesn't mean that black people did vote for him.
Wait a minute.
Black people didn't think they voted for him when he ran.
I said he ran 2 other times and lost. Now 3 times he gonna strike out? What are you gonna do? Strike out?
You know why?
Because the party pushed them forward?
No, you know
why? The
party
pushed them forward.
You know why? You know why Donald Trump is president? It's not because black people didn't vote for Hillary. It's because black people didn't see that they were going to attain economic and political power given the false choice, and so they stayed home, right? And so you can't.
So they didn't vote.
No. But hear what I'm saying to you. So they looked and said, nothing's in it for me. And so what you're saying to a group of people is whether you see something in it for you or not, it is your obligation to go and vote for somebody else's interest. And I'm saying we got to stop that. Wait a minute. I applaud those people. They said there was nothing in it for me. Show me what's in it for me. And you can't. And the Democratic Party couldn't. And right now, the Democratic Party can't. They can't show black people what's in it for them. They didn't do it in 2015. Then here's the kicker. They had 4 years to figure it out, right? And then come back and say, you know what? We recognize that you all stayed home because we didn't have shit for you. But you know what? We went back and we thought about it and we want to negotiate honestly with the black community. And so here's some stuff we have for you. They didn't do that. You know what they did? They showed absolute contempt. And now they come back with the same thing, or maybe even something worse. And they say, you know what? At the end of the day, though, we're going to blame you, right? Not us for not having anything for you. Not us for listening to you and recognizing what a deep ditch you're in because of policies that we continue to impose on you. We're not having any of that conversation. We're simply saying if you don't suck it up and do it for us, we're going to blame you like we blamed you these last 4 years. That is the narrative. Do you understand that? That is the narrative. And then all we got to do, like we talk about it now in the age of COVID-19. Look at us. Look at us. And what do they have for us? They're wringing their hands. They ain't got shit for us. But they say, you know what? Suck it up. Suck it up.
And it's a false narrative that black people didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. Because if you look at the numbers, they came out. You just didn't have that a line around the block for Hillary. That's all.
Well,
the majority of the parties voted.
Let me put it to you this way. More black people voted for Obama than they voted for Hillary Clinton. Now, more white women, middle class, voted for Donald Trump than they did, and that's what got him over the hump. He didn't win the popular vote. He won the electoral votes.
Right. We understand that.
So what we have to look at is this. In the situation right now, COVID-19, look, they don't have crap for white people. So you know they got nothing for us.
Well,
and that's the narrative that we're dealing with.
Let me say this about Victoria College.
She didn't.
Of course. So now how you going to say now that, you're going to use black popularity and white women popularity, and Hillary Clinton did it in the campaign. Just like you don't even see JoJo with. I ain't seen a sign for nobody yet, and I'm out here on the road. I've seen signs for Donald Trump, Pennsylvania, up in Connecticut, everywhere.
Virginia.
But I haven't seen a Joe Biden sign yet. He just, I'm the anointed one. Just like Hillary Clinton. I'm anointed. And look what happened. So now you're going to have to show me, Joe Biden's going to have to show me.
Listen, I'm telling you. And then so all I'm saying to you is this. For all of the people caping for the Democratic Party, right, and trying to guilt black people into voting against their interests, right, by saying it's going to be your fault, that's not going to be enough. And what you should be doing is you should be urging the Democratic Party. You should be saying to them, y'all better give something tangible to black people. Y'all better come up with some. Listen, the very I can go into look. They're about to dismiss black vice presidential candidate. Right? He's not gonna have one. I honestly believe that what's her name? Elizabeth Warren is or he may go with Amy Klobuchar. Right? But
disaster.
Yeah, but I'm saying he's not gonna. Stacey Abrams is a no-go, right?
Yeah.
Kamala Harris is a no-go. It's not gonna happen.
Oh God, you please don't even let that name come out your mouth.
Right.
Talk about black inequality.
No, but my point to you is this, right? So in the end of this thing, what is it that the only thing that black folks are gonna be able to say if they vote for Biden is we got Trump out of office. But our condition hasn't changed.
That is that. Like I said, that should not be our long-term goal. That should be our immediate objective.
Right.
Now, wait, and then let's give a little sliver of hope. If he made a pact with Clyburn, okay, to resuscitate his campaign, and he did make him the nominee, then let's give a little hope that's saying that there has to be something coming out of this.
No, but we know. Wait. Are you kidding me?
Here we
Listen,
go.
listen.
Oh, Lord, call a man fish fry.
Listen, we can't, look, we don't have enough time to go into that, but if you really believe that Clyburn negotiated for something other than something for Clyburn, right, then you're delusional. He negotiated for something for himself, not for black people.
I'm going to err on the side of hope with that. If I'm wrong, then I will accept that.
In the words of Jesse Jackson, keep hope alive.
But I'm going to keep hope alive in saying that in that negotiation, which did get him the nomination,
right.
Okay, that we should be able to at least address some of our issues. And when he does come here and talk all of that, I love black people rhetoric, and you know what, I was the vice president under President Obama, and all that praise and glory, then we should, instead of sitting up there in the awe and splendor of Biden talking to us, we should then start hammering some hard objectives and what he should do for us.
Really? It's too late. The horse is out of the barn already.
When you say we, who's we hammering out these objectives?
Thank you.
Who's we?
Who's sitting at that table?
Yeah.
Who's at the table, Vincent?
Yes.
No, I'm asking you.
Table?
Who's at that table hammering it out?
Well, I'm hoping I'm going to be one of the persons in that audience or at that table making my voice heard. I'm definitely hoping that. I'm looking to come out. I'm looking to,
Vincent, the heckler makes his voice heard. That doesn't mean anything happens. The heckler makes his voice heard.
Yes.
I'm talking about getting something done.
He might get thrown out, but
he might get thrown out, but his voice is heard.
That's actually right. The Black Lives Matter people made their voices heard. But what happened?
And they got platitude. They got deadly.
Right, so I'm not looking to get my voice heard, Vincent, at this point. I'm beyond that.
Okay. Right. Well, I'm looking to have my voice heard.
All right.
I'm looking forward to looking him in the eye and expressing him moving moving our agenda forward.
Okay.
I'm looking at him
what
saying,
agenda? Wait a minute. What agenda?
I'm looking at the fact of either he's going to commit to it or he's going to side.
What agenda?
And then I'll make my decision.
What agenda? What agenda?
What agenda? Okay, well, let's pick the most immediate. Here's the huge agenda that we need to deal with and stop sidestepping. Our underlying conditions of health, food sources,
where's that
income.
agenda? So what I'm saying to you is this. Yeah, I understand the emotional piece of it, but I'm saying there's no organizational structure to it, right? So there's no people, right? And then there's no real tangible agenda that these people are going to sit with.
In terms of people, I heard Eric Dawson's got an army of listeners.
No. Listen. Look. Even in terms of our listeners, I watched our people, right, be told that they had lead in their water, and they did nothing.
Oh no, they made senator. What do you mean they did nothing? They made him senator.
So listen, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Go visit the website. Understand if you've got a brand, whether or not you should consider it an asset, and whether you should consider protecting your intellectual property.
Henceforth, the ADOS shirts.
Oh, that's done already.
That's what I'm talking about. That's my man.
Listen. I take care of all my stuff. Look, here's what I want to tell you too. I'll give you this as a tip, and he didn't mention it when he called. Prior to, if you ever create something, right, a logo or anything that you believe you can, protect, take it, put it in an envelope, mail it to yourself, certified mail, return receipt requested. And then when it comes, don't open it. What that does is it, at the very least, shows a timestamp, a date that you can claim that you created it, right? Because whatever's in that envelope that's not open will have a federal postmark stamp date on it, right? So if you had to go to court,
he discussed that on the common law,
right? So if you go to court and like if I went to court with Vincent, right? But I do have the trademark for the ADOS. But let's say I didn't. Let's say that all I had was that envelope. And then Vincent came up with a logo. We went in, and he came up with it today. And then next week we went to court. I would be able to produce an envelope that has that logo in it from 5 months ago, right? And then I would be able to say, so at least at this point I created, and if Vincent couldn't prove that he created it prior to that, then he'd have some issues.
Right.
And then I'd call Aussie and we'd sue you. That's right. I get my money. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll check with you tomorrow.
All right. God bless everyone. Stay safe.